we're here talking about this week because there has been just so much happening. We originally were going to sit down to talk sports, but then, kind of with everything going on during this, it's kind of like that is definitely not the important conversation happening. The George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the protests happening this week, that is topic number one probably for weeks, and and if we're all like in this together, it should be like the way we're kind of talking, for a little while, I think. So I kind of wanted to get y'all together and get your thoughts on kind of what's been happening, or what y'all have been seeing and feeling this week.
It's interesting to see what people mean by we're in it together, because with coronavirus, it would seem like it would be a given thing, oh, we're all up against a virus that we don't know about. Let's all band together and help each other out. Let's try and kind of put things together. But even then, a lot of people didn't agree with a lot of stuff. They didn't want to uproot their lives. They didn't want to make themselves uncomfortable. But then you get something like this, to where, a guy's life is taken, but it's not by a virus. It's by another person. And it's not like we're new to this, this is about the umpteenth time, more than the umpteenth time that we've seen stuff like this. But now we're kind of starting to see, what people mean by we should be all in this together kind of thing. It's not one of those things where it's just like, oh, I prefer that I shouldn't have to do this or anything like that. This is like, no. Now has to be a time where you kind of have to take a stance for once and be like, you can't just not be racist. You have to have a voice and combat racism. And you can't worry about what other people are going to say. You can't worry about, oh, is this the time to say something? And, I remember, with ESPN years back, or even a couple months back, it's always been this taboo thing, like Neil was telling me earlier before we started recording, of, oh, this is supposed to be a sports outlet. This isn't supposed to be a political outlet. I shouldn't have to worry about this. This is supposed to be my escape. Well, welcome to 2020. There's no escape from anything anymore, because we're all in quarantine. Even if you are at work, you still can't help but feel like you're in this boxed in place. And that's where you do kind of feel like we're all in this together, in the sense of, okay, we're all kind of placed in this same kind of situation. Now it's up to us to really see what we can do with that.
Yeah. And I think, Michael, to follow up on your point, this is literally a situation that white people have to actually deal with. Like, Black people have had to deal with a situation that they haven't been able to control for 500 years. And we go a week and a half where the racist whites cannot control a situation, and you see what's happening. So basically, this conversation is going to be drilled into the heads of every single sports fan on ESPN, and to every single person who has a brain on this continent. Because here's the thing, this thing is deeper than just the United States. This is something that globally, as a power, the United States is the last free nation that's a superpower. China and Russia both have a stronghold on their civilians. The United States is the last nation where we can speak freely and not get hurt for it. But as you're seeing, Black, white, or indifferent people, it doesn't matter. The narrative is being, the narratives aren't always true. What they put out, the news outlets are being misleading. Like, this is, you were talking about how in 2020 we're not escaping this, but also we're having news outlets trying to escape the truth, trying to find wiggle room. And it's just, I don't know about you, but I am emotionally drained. I just feel like it just feels like it just feels like I've been on a roller coaster. I've been, that roller coaster at Six Flags, the Goliath.
Goliath, yep. Just feel that
I
drop
feel like,
constantly.
yeah, literally, I feel like I've just been on that ride all week and a half, and it's just like
Well,
I
I
just want.
remember the first couple of days, the first
Mm-hmm.
1 to 3 days, it was hard for me to go to sleep at night. I'm just like in my bed sitting there and I'm just like, I have to go another night knowing that this is the most divided we have ever been or ever seemed to have been, and that it's not going to get fixed overnight. And I got to sleep through this and go to the next day and fight it again. Like it's really deep in how, it feels like there's not much you can do about it because there's a lot of people that always like to say, there's always going to be bad people and you can't change racism and it's always going to be there. And sure, there are going to be people that's always going to have those racist thoughts. But what you can change and what you can affect is how you handle it going forward and how you react to it going forward. And that is up to every single individual person to do that. Can you change somebody directly? Not easily. But I've also seen that it's not impossible to change people. There are people that I have on my social media outlets, people that I know in real life that have always kind of had the anti-kneeling stance, and we'll talk about the kneeling for sure in terms of like the NFL protests and whatnot. There are people that feel like the racist stories that we tell people are exaggerated, but then after all of this, they're starting to see, wow, I was wrong about a lot of these things. Wow, they really had to deal with this for this amount of time. I don't know why this situation kind of took the blinders off suddenly, but I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are also just like, yo, oh, they suddenly have a change of heart, like, oh, it's too late. It's like you can't have this mindset that it's too late if you really care about fixing this. You have to believe in the change that people have made, and you have to continue to believe that the changes that are going to develop are going to keep on going to a point where maybe things are going to get better.
Mm.
Right. Yeah. You bring up the point about, like we're all sports fans here. You kind of bring up the point of one thing that I've been noticing, this week is just like the part of, news outlets are trying to like sway it, like, this one angle or another, but it's like the avenue in which, a lot of times it's like sports are put into this frame of don't go into politics, don't go into this and that, like stick, and it's just, once again, but sports is always kind of where almost like life and like kind of comes together when it's these types of situations seem to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting that, to Jordan's point, when, mainstream America is tuning into PTI, The Jump, ESPN, all these, uh, every show, and getting like a dose of like what's happening in our world. I like. Do you think that is having, what impact do you think that's happening when people are tuning into, like I said, PTI and seeing Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon be getting their stuff?
It has two effects. I got there. There's two things because like when you put stuff out there like Black Lives Matter, it's as objectively positive as that sounds. That statement and that subject is so polarizing because you're gonna have, because obviously Black folks are gonna support it, and then white people who are anti-racist are gonna support it. But if you are not anti-racist, you're going to be irritated by the subject. So that's like so the people who were trying to leave the NFL when Kaepernick was kneeling, those were the people who, you know, they were indifferent, either indifferent or racist, because they didn't want to hear about, oh, why is he kneeling? Oh, why are we talking about the flag? why are we talking about police brutality? Like people were annoyed that someone was trying to stand up for an issue, and that's really how you can sort out who's with you and who's against you, because I know
Mhm.
Michael said it earlier, like you got to take a stance.
Mhm.
And if you're not, and as a white person, if you're not willing to tolerate and listen to the subject at hand, the rhetoric at hand, and you get irritated by it, then you need to look inside yourself and try to fix whatever racist bone or thread that is in your heart, because you should not feel irritated that somebody is trying to get their human rights, because it would have nothing to do, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
our human rights have nothing to do with Neil, and I don't think Neil's human rights have anything to do with with me or Michael's.
And the thing is, like, I think the sidebar that's been going along with a lot of the issues that we've been seeing lately is really the foundational question of what is it that you exactly value in life right now? Do you value things? Do you value certain principles that you feel like should never be stepped upon? Or do you value your fellow neighbor that you see every day? The people that you interact with, the people that you have dinner with, the people that you tend to walk across the street with every day? Do you value them more so than those things, those possessions, or those thoughts that you feel like were always right? That's what I'm starting to take away from this, because like Jordan's been saying, like there's some people that feel like certain things are more important right now than someone else's life. Do I agree with looting? Absolutely not. And I wish that it didn't have to come to that point. I feel like people did those things for a reason, in terms of like not being listened to and whatnot. I think that definitely has a certain effect. But do I like that a lot of businesses that had nothing to do with the injustice that went on are suffering? No. But at the same time, the people that only tend to speak when those things are hit instead of people's lives that are taken away, it's no wonder why people kind of get mad at that and they're like, you're part of the problem.
Mhm. See, you mentioned the standpoint of people having in this instance to pick a side, choose a side. Are you encouraged though by the fact that mainstream talk shows are kind of forcing mainstream listeners of all kinds to hear the rhetoric in the first place, to that it is a subject that whether that is kind of entering mainstream listeners kind of with a force to the point that it you kind of are sort of enveloped in this conversation, and like, because to me it just seems like you're all people are always going to have their native places of where they stand on these issues, but the very fact that the conversation is entering homes in like such a like I keep saying, like a mainstream way, like is it
Mhm.
encouraging to you that that people are having to think about
Yes, yes, but there's collateral damage to that, where you have to think about Trump's base. Trump's base is getting like it's probably getting smaller by the minute, but it's also getting stronger and more loyal by the minute,
Mhm.
because it just seems like when you because this rhetoric is working in two ways. It's working as positive propaganda for African Americans, but then it's also like fueling like Nazism, fascism propaganda to, you know, Antifa, Aryan race, uh, and KKK affiliates. Like basically, like that's what like I think about Middle America, because like we live in Atlanta, so we have this you know, a very biased view of how this movement is going, just because we are around majority black people, the most, you know, highest, I guess we're the highest density of black people. but I think about places in like Kansas, Montana, Idaho, Iowa. Those places, like literally, those people are sitting at home probably fuming at what's going on. So it's like I guess like I do feel more positive and safer about, being a black man in the Southeast, but around the nation, there's absolutely no way that, you know, all of this media is affecting, populations positively. It's
Yeah.
just not, it just can't happen.
And sometimes like you just can't tell like who's really doing it because it's what they believe in their heart, or if it's because they know that that's where the trend is going and they don't want to lose people based off of it. I know, like, it's kind of annoying, even with the regular coronavirus stuff, where it's just like you're starting to hear radio stations being like, during these troubling times, we want to make sure that we help you with such and such, and we want you to get this product and stuff like that. And, you
Hmm.
don't want black rights to kind of have that angle sooner or later being like, and I don't know how they would really spin it. But, in that sense, like, it's also encouraging just to see companies do that, because for the longest time, you've seen a lot of entertainment companies, especially, not really willing to take a stance just because they don't want to lose a certain part of their fan base and they don't want to lose certain things from that. But now they're starting to see, you know what, like, this isn't right. We can't have racists that follow us and dominate comment sections if they're a YouTube channel. You can't have them intimidate the other people that tend to support you. And at the end of the day, like, eventually even they have to choose a side of, you know what, we have to say you can't be welcome here if you have these kind of views. It has to be at some point against the law to have such, I guess, especially just physical parts of this hatred that we've been seeing. Of course, it's a no-brainer. You don't want to have anybody murdered on the streets anymore. And, it sucks that has to be the start, but we have to start somewhere, I
You
guess.
don't feel like because I feel like what's happened in the last week has legitimately put something like into and I believe that the steps to change are taking like what's happened in the street, like in the protests right now, and actually seeing it through, th- through kind of like tested plans, tested like kind of like to bring down police brutality, all that, like you know the thing like eight can't wait like steps that like bring like there's the whole like if those methods are implemented into police systems, like it'll bring down police brutality by 72%. Like I believe like system like things like that are, if implemented, are like things to really see effective change. But what I do believe what's happened with all of these protests is it has given people in charge, governments, police departments, or people in charge of police reform, like all of that. It's given like America something. Like I believe it's given America something that that it can't ignore. Like it has, like we need, like in companies that don't adhere to like what's being asked right now, like are going um like this is going to, like I believe this is going to affect change going forward. So like do you believe that what's happened, um like what, like what do you see um being affected by what you've seen like through these protests? Are you encouraged by like like things that have been happening?
I think just I am encouraged, but I am not going to solidify my encouragement until I see all four of those officers, uh, behind bars for 20 plus years. Because
Mm-hmm.
you like, just because here's the thing: if a civilian did that to another civilian, it would be, second degree murder, easy
Mm-hmm.
conviction. But because this man is wearing a badge That's where the gray area comes in. So this is where I say you defund the police, you raise the qualifications, you
Yeah.
also you also make them complete psychiatric evaluations every 3 to 6 months, because you're talking about, look, and I'm not hating on the job. It's probably one of the most stressful jobs in the world, because you're putting your life on the line every day, and I understand that. But common sense is common sense. When a man is unarmed, you have no right to shoot him.
When
Like
someone
like
is
that's
subdued on the ground, they shouldn't be there for an
right.
hour. They should be
Right.
put in the car and done with. Like,
And also, if any of y'all remember in that video of George Floyd, I hope you rest in paradise. Those weren't EMTs that picked him up. Those were other officers. So he never even received medical attention even after he was put on the gurney. He basically was DOA, never received any sort of treatment. So just to add to more of the brutality, like it's just that's the thing. Like, we have gone so far to where they are doing it in front of our face, and now this is the test.
yeah.
Will something change? Because literally everything that has led up to this point has been a test to see, hey, how much can we take away until someone fights back. And this is us fighting back. If
Mhm.
if they are indicted, shoot, change may never happen. Like, this is really a make or break moment in
Yeah.
history. Yeah, this is really a make or break moment in history. And what's crazy, and I want to segue this into the NBA. I'm actually glad that the NBA is not going to start until late July,
Yeah, we need
because
this time. Like,
Right. Well,
we
why?
do. And you got guys like Dame Lillard. You need those NBA stars who are. Go ahead.
No, no. I was asking like why do you feel that like to expound on that more?
Because just because I think our NBA stars, I would say I would go on to say, like, what, at least like more than half of the NBA is African American or of African descent. You need those men out here protesting. Damian Lillard is out in Portland right now. Jaylen Brown, your man from your alma mater. You know what I'm saying?
Like
He
yeah,
drove. Like, think about that. Like,
I just yeah, like
think
I'm
about
proud of
that.
that
Like,
guy, but yeah.
that is like he Jaylen Brown is going to inspire, children, not even children from just Boston or Atlanta. He's gonna inspire everyone on the East Coast that he probably drove by. Just
yeah.
just
I mean, like,
just
you have
the
Trey Young going back to Oklahoma.
right. And so it's like, if you're a young black man growing up, or just a young man in general, you're gonna look at these ball players and you're gonna be like, man, I want to be like them when I grow up. And they're not even gonna look at them as, oh, these guys are athletes, they play with a ball. No, they're like superheroes now.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's
And
that's what
it's
I think. That's
Well,
what I think the NBA needs to capitalize on.
And I do think,
well,
like, even though, like, this goes for NBA and all the other sports, but, like, even with the NBA, where the majority are black, like, you still need some of the white players to say stuff as well. I
right.
mean, like, because let's face it, like,
That's one thing.
some of those words carry a lot heavier.
Well, the
Yeah,
two
like,
that
I'm
I
getting
want
tired
to
of
say
only hearing Greg
to
Popovich and
Jordan's
Steve
point
Kerr.
was one, like, because everyone's been saying yeah, like the black voices say have been rallying people around, but all the statements so far have been white people need to step up as well, and that's one question I want to ask is what what do you believe like needs to be, what would you want to see from white people like during this time, how do you believe like white people can like become and be an ally, and like what would you like to see from the white community?
Really just to start caring more for their fellow person. I mean, like going back to what I said earlier about people kind of putting their predetermined beliefs or objects ahead of people. You know, for once, actually start listening to some of the voices that you hear saying, hey, I've been uncomfortable my entire life living as a black male, as a black woman, and so forth. I've been uncomfortable because people feel uncomfortable around me for no reason, and etc. I mean, like there are many instances where it just feels like, you know, even with the black athletes, like people are just kind of used to black athletes talking about it, you know, they're not really affected by it. I mean, going into the whole Drew Brees situation where he talks about what the flag means to him, it wouldn't have sounded as bad when they were asking him, hey, you know, with this whole emergence of everything going on, how do you feel about the protest maybe continuing from how it was a couple of years ago? And the first thing that he said is, I'm not going to really agree with anyone that disrespects our flag. And of course, there's more that he said after that. He does admit that things aren't right in this country and that we have to do better and that there needs to be unification. And that's why he believes in standing for the flag, because he feels like that shows unification. But that's the thing, is it's like, to me, that's just more of a, I want to continue to have my blinders on and say that we're unified and show that we're unified, even though we know that we're not. That's the whole reason why Kaepernick did this thing in the first place, to show people, yeah, we're supposed to be unified, but are we? That's why I'm going to put myself below their level right now, because that's how I feel like I'm treated, below everybody's level. And for the people that say that, oh, you know, well, they didn't have to disrespect the flag like that. I don't know how many times people have to say this, but it's the fact that, you know, Colin Kaepernick had spoken to a veteran about how he wanted to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And kneeling, you know, people have to think about kneeling in a retrospect that in the realm of sports, kneeling is one of the most respectful things that you can do. You know, when a fellow teammate, or even when
Right,
a person on the other team
yeah, you take a knee.
is down, they take a knee and they stay silent. You know, and that's why Colin Kaepernick took that level of understanding and being like, okay, I'm going to make my point, but I'm also going to show my sign of respect by staying with my teammates, but also taking a knee and also showing, hey, I respect these people that have died, but I'm also going to let you know that things still aren't right. And for me, for Drew Brees to just say, oh, well, you know, it's still just disrespecting our flag and you can't do this with their flag and stuff like that. It's just him still having that mindset of this comes first, but, you know, oh, yeah, sure, I'm still thinking about you guys. Like, and to me, that's why I felt like it was wrong. Did I come away with the aspect of, oh, Drew Brees is an absolute racist? Not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure that he's done a lot of things for the community. That's why a lot of people love him, because he helped, you know, New Orleans come back up from the ashes, or from the waters, I guess is a better term, from like Hurricane Katrina. But, you know, you have to be a better ally, especially when you are a quarterback of your team, people that want to look up to you and respect you and feel like that you are on their side.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come out with a stance like that, saying that, you know, I can't put you above that, like that's where you start losing people.
But the thing is, you know, Drew Brees as a quarterback, and like kind of like as like the savior of the Saints, is someone that is seen as a great leader, and yet in that situation, it's like he's coming across like it's not showing great leadership to be like, you know, locking arms like with his teammates, to be making a statement like that at a time like this, when the whole like situation is asking for solidarity. It's asking for like, it's almost like the representation of a true leader is, you take the time to listen to what your teammates are saying. You're listening to what your teammates are, and it's one thing if Brees is truly, believes in standing for the flag, and like I don't and but this topic right here, it's not about that. And the very
Yeah.
fact that he's making that statement, and this comes from years after years after years of believing I'm this great leader, I can say what I'm going to say and people are still going to follow because I'm the quarterback of the Saints, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that right there almost shows like the oversight, or like or not respecting, kind of like, to at least even if that is like how you feel about the flag. And I think it's just kind of listen to what your teammates are saying, and at the moment just like say, just be there, and kind of like in that, and support the solidarity.
Yeah, I completely agree, Neil. One thing, the one thing that struck me about Drew Brees' interview was that instead of exhibiting solidarity, humility, he showed his white pride. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. I mean, but like you described it as that he just was being hard headed, did not want to listen to what his team had to say. I mean, hey, and I say this jokingly, but I feel like it'd be hard to listen to Michael Thomas speak anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, but I mean, literally, Drew spoke like he was speaking from white pride. Like that's really what that was like literally he just tried to bulldoze his way through a topic just because he was a white man.
Mm-hmm.
History is spoken by the victors. It's a lot easier for him to feel proud of everything the flag has been with and stuff, you know?
Oh, no doubt. But literally, but time and time again, there have been white men that just basically plow through adversity because they know that they're white in America. Like Tom Brady. Oh, let's be real. He should be out of the NFL for all the scandals he has. Same thing with Bill Belichick. And I'm very surprised Sean Payton. They actually punished him when he had his little debacle, little what was that, Bounty Gate.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like to me, I don't see how the Saints, and I know we were talking about this in the group chat. Yo, you're completely right. Saints have killed their playoff chances. Give Jameis Winston at number 9, and, and and watch the Falcons are gonna finish. Watch this, Falcons are gonna finish like 9-7 and get that 7 seed. Like that's like literally that's how the Saints have literally
By the way,
put.
we have 3 minutes on this, so do you want to we can power this down and just
Yeah, we probably do want to
yeah. Anyway,
move it over.
So yeah, we're back, and before this, we were talking about Breeze's comments, and one thing I just kind of wanted to circle back about that was just kind of like the the standpoint of like, 'cause like, I've been to 2 protests this week, and like just the common theme that you're seeing through that, and just through social media posts, or just like all the things on how to be an ally during this, is number one is is to listen, is sit back and listen. And you brought up Tom Brady just a little while ago, and it's like, I looked at, I was interested to like look into like what did Tom Brady do, and it's like he participated in the Blackout Tuesday, and there was also something that he did on Twitter, and I forget what it was, but it was the standpoint of going back to what like true leadership is taking that time to like sit back and just and not feel like this is the time to make a statement. It's the time
Mm-hmm.
you are a privileged white person, especially playing quarterback, or anyone with a platform, or anyone just who experiences privilege.
Yeah,
That
and like
to, yeah,
today was a day where like Matt Ryan got to really show like why Atlanta got to be so proud for once today, you know? Like Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan kept it simple. He's just like, look, I don't understand everything that's going on because how could I understand? I don't live in your shoes, but I want to try to understand. And so, like, while he kept it brief, he did it for a purpose of the fact of like he's not going to pretend to know everything. But what he is going to do is he's going to put his money where his mouth is and donated like $500,000 to helping Black communities and so forth. And that's such a huge step, and it's such a thing where it's just like, that's my quarterback. Like you really like to see that from your leaders. And it does everybody have to throw money at the problem? No, but that's one way of solving it, because let's face it,
That's
like
the
in
best way.
America, like it's really hard to do stuff without funding.
right. I totally agree. And this is something that I was thinking about earlier. Was just like I'm, and I said before, like I'm looking forward to like a tried and true, like kind of like plan to put in place. That's just like the eight can't wait. I mentioned before. It's like that that is a system that has been tested. Like there's data. It's data supported that if you implement all eight of those strategies, and that it brings down police brutality by 72%. And it's like I've seen like all of these grassroots organizations that come up, and like my feel is I believe like any donation obviously supports the situation, supports it, like I believe in like all of like the justice for like the cops that haven't been convicted of like the murders that they have convicted, or like the people they have killed. And but in the end, like the goal that I believe like we're all striving for is never again. Like this doesn't happen again. And to me, like it's what or let me ask this, instead of like kind of going on, and just what do you guys feel like is an effective strategy heading forward? Like what would you want to see put in place? Is it just police brutality, or is it more than that? Is it does it go beyond that?
Yes, there's I mean there's literally it is a whole system, not just a police system. For one, I think reparations are in place. I don't think we'll get that, but something to the tune of 10 to 15 trillion dollars would be equal compensation for us building this country for free. Uh, with that said, police need to be defunded, or you have to have affirmative action and have your police force mirror your population. Meaning that, for instance, in in a population that's 70% black, the police force needs to be 70% black. If a police force is 80% white, that means the population needs to be 80% white. So yeah, police forces need to be scaled to race, but also they need to, like I said earlier, psychological evaluations. Just really like we need to hold police officers accountable, like we hold athletes and teachers and you know and celebrities accountable. It's like literally an athlete can sneeze wrong, and we're on top of them.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, a teacher has misconduct in the classroom and they're out of the classroom. But a police officer can mess up and kill somebody and then be back on the job after paid leave in 2 weeks. Like
And the
there,
thing is, like, people are taught like you're supposed to give an officer absolute respect and stuff like that. But for everybody else, respect has to be earned. When it's and like going back into the part with like the athletes and all that, with Michael Vick, back when he made his mistake, a lot of the slants against him, which were rightfully so, was just like, what, my son looked up to you. A lot of people look up to you to be a role model. And do all athletes necessarily sign up for that when they become an athlete? Not necessarily, but they sometimes don't necessarily know what position they're in. They don't really realize, oh yeah, I'm on national TV every day and people look to me and they see what I do. And if I perform well, they expect me to also kind of at least be somewhat of a decent person. So when you put on that badge every day and you have that uniform, yeah, I guess people would expect that you'd have respect for them. But at some point, like, they have to earn that too. They have to show, we're going to protect you, but we're also going to make sure that we're not going to go after somebody just because we're afraid of them and feel like, oh, they're going to, attack us, especially if they don't have any weapons on
Let me ask: have there been instances that, like, when, like, have there been instances that you all have, that both of you have felt, like, do cops, like, make y'all feel antsy? Or are there situations that you have been put in? And I just feel like asking this question just because, like, I feel like this is kind of like the prevalent thing right now, is just like, how have you felt you've been treated, like, like in this country, or like, kind of going through life?
I mean, luckily, when it comes to police, I've had very limited encounters. I've always been taught from a very young age about how to interact with police officers. And of course, like, that all kind of depended on the stages of my life. When I was like 4 to 6, it was just like, yeah, these police officers can be your friend. And if you ever get lost, you can refer to them and say, I live here. Can you please take me home? Guide me to my family and stuff. Then suddenly when you're 10 to 12, it's like, okay, it's a little more than that, being the person that you are. Like, you have to make sure that you're always respectful. You have to make sure you say things in this kind of way. Then when you get to your teen years, you're just like, look, you have to keep your hands on the wheel. Always mention what you're doing as you're doing it. If they tell you to step out, step out. Make sure that you don't have any kind of inflection in your voice that makes you seem threatening. Like, there's so many different steps in terms of Black parenting as to how you're really supposed to follow things. But, as in terms of like everyday kind of racism things, oh yeah, absolutely, I've encountered those things. It's been as simple as going into an IHOP and with a patching Confederate hat just glares at me the moment I step in, and he continued to glare at me, never like straying his eye from me the entire meal that we had. And I had people at my table like staring back at him, being like, what's your damage? I even do like a playful wave at him and stuff, being like, hey, I'm just your ordinary person eating in a restaurant. And he still just glares at me as if I'm the one that took away that one eye that he had or anything like that. And it was just, at first, like, it was sad, and at the same time also comical. It's just like, wow, people actually live their life like this.
Like, we'll use, like, we'll actually get angry because of the sight of, like, another person.
Yeah. And to Mike, man, Michael just hit, yeah, you hit that thing perfectly. Like, basically through each stage of my life, we had to look at the police a certain way. And I would say, for me, I never had an issue with the police until I had an issue with the police. Like, I was one of those, I was one of those Black people who I thought, hey, because of how I speak, because of who I am, a police officer isn't going to hurt me or try to take advantage of me. And I was very mistaken. I got pulled over at 18. I got pulled over for stealing my own vehicle.
Wow.
So like, I was, and I wish, and I was even, I would say, like, I didn't really become like woke, or like, I wasn't really like street smart or knowledgeable until like maybe like 19 or 20. But as an 18-year-old boy, like being put in the back of a squad car while they try to sort this thing out, like was like that thing was like it was pretty hairy because I was like literally there was nothing I could do. There was absolutely nothing I could do. And if I could do anything, I would have been dead.
Yeah.
And that's and like literally there's like a there's a there's a sense of helplessness that like because like there's a sense of just like I said, you know, the white pride from Drew Brees, like there is a pridefulness in black men that like we're able to carry on every day. And then to be put in a helpless situation is like that's like the psychological like that's the generational psychological pain that we've been feeling is that well, no matter what we do, we can't get to the same position that a white person is at. Like that's literally like that's the thing. Like that's the crazy thing about this whole movement. We're not trying to get rid of y'all or annihilate y'all. We just want to be y'all's equal. Like literally, that's the thing. We want to be equals. We don't want to be better. We don't want to be different. We just all want to be Americans. We all want to be equal. And I think when you see us peacefully protesting and then us getting beaten down, that's literally that's literally what has happened the last 500 years in this nation. You have black people getting beat down when really we just want to be equal. And when I and in my situation, and like I've had several situations with the police, some I put on myself because I was being angry and belligerent, but it's just like you could be calm, but if your skin tone is too dark, it does not matter. But until that's the thing, these 4 men they get indicted, it will matter. But until then, it won't matter. It'll never matter. So that's really my take on the police is that just that I just feel helpless. And I just like and like seeing convictions will help my sense of helplessness.
So is it just those 4 men, or is it every? What about all of the other incidents? Like,
But that's the thing is it's the domino effect because literally you need one set of convictions so that then prosecutors all over the United States can point to that case as leverage, and then that lawyer can point to that case, and then that case, and then
right.
that case. Because literally, when you set a precedent in law, it the momentum is just too great. So that's why I'm adamant about these first. Aubrey gets justice. Breonna Taylor gets justice. We could retroactively get justice for guys like for Garner, for Brown, for even Trayvon. Well, I mean, yeah, I was gonna say for even Trayvon Martin, but Zimmerman is in prison right now. But just like that's the thing, we can I don't think maybe I'm hyping the magnitude of this case, but literally a conviction leads to hundreds, if not thousands of convictions nationwide.
I see. Okay, because that puts it into context. Because to me, like where I come from, like I've been frustrated about this like inequality for kind of like you know for kind of like a long time in my life. I don't know what the proper like way to kind of like phrase that is, but you know my family is Jewish. Like that's our that's our ancestry. I have people that not sure if I'm directly related to, but people that are on my mom's side of the family or through family members that were in Auschwitz. They have brands like on their arm, and so like I definitely come from a background that is just people trying to just have that. When my mom was growing up, she grew up in a very you know Jewish neighborhood where it was just the families would get together and kind of create a whole kind of great atmosphere. It's just kind of like that feeling of like fitting in and being a part of like kind of like a safe space. And like that for me is something that like I've always been like really trying to create. Like that's something like through these talks and like through the kind of the whole beer media kind of stuff that I want to do. It's kind of like I want that opportunity to be able to bring people together and just share stories and like have that kind of like space to just be. That's the curfew, but just that space to just kind of breathe easy and relax and just share stories and kind of do all that kind of stuff. So like that's really like that's been at like the core of just who I am for a long time. And so that's like why this situation, all of these situations have brought me a lot of frustration and anxiety, just because like I do want to see, and I think this is part of the outpour of support that's going on with so many people like coming up to these protests, is because I think a lot of people, and including white people, have wanted to see a world where like everyone just like that feeling of just like there's nothing like just having like good people standing around all sharing and talking and that sort of thing. And I really feel like there's a lot of people that just want life to feel that way. And that's really what I truly like want to see. And so that's like for this whole time, like the goal to me is I want to see real change to the point like this, like I said, like it never happens again. But hearing what you're saying about justice for Floyd is really is about creating the precedent of this case, so like it sets it up for for any case in the future, like hopefully again doesn't happen. But getting those 4 officers convicted is setting that precedent to the point that you create the environment that like you said, the domino effect that can first set the precedent here, and then legislation can have an effect going forward as a result of this.
Yeah. I mean, like it's crazy how different certain opinions can be when it comes to media and so forth. I mean, you hear, I forget the reporter's name, but she talks about how LeBron had something to say about it, and of course it was just just shut up and dribble. Yeah. And then with Drew Brees, it's just like, oh, why can't Drew Brees have an opinion? Like, oh, well, what's going on there? And it's just like social media can be very helpful in unifying people, but at the same time, like some of my other friends have kind of pointed out to me lately, like they can also kind of only keep you steered in one direction, in a sense. Like they have algorithms now these days. They probably have algorithms for years to where they can kind of cater to what you like, so they can see, oh, you don't like Trump, well, you may not see more of them. Oh, you do like Trump, we're going to make sure we spoon feed him all the time and all that. Oh, you believe in Black Lives Matter, well, we're only going to have these kind of things where maybe certain instances of violence come up. Or if you don't believe in Black Lives Matter, we're going to constantly have people telling you how they're all criminals and so forth. And that's just something to where like that's not going to have a real conversation with a lot of people. With social media, it's really hard to have that in-depth, this is how I feel and here's why, and it's worth listening to, instead of just inserting what you feel in one comment and then leaving.
Right. But see, that's what I think the protests are having a strong effect on is like you can't shut it off.
Exactly.
You can't shut these off. Like
Like you
it
can't
is
ignore it
coming,
anymore.
whether or not you support it or against it, it's happening and it's coming through whether you watch Fox, whether you watch ESPN, whether you like are on Twitter, everything like it's forcing you to have the conversation. And what's very powerful about it is like with this much support on issues like this, it's kind of like like it's it's honestly a giant negotiation going on with, do you seriously, like we're here right now, do you seriously like want the result of like not listening, like do you want the like what happens, like the alternative of listening to what we're saying and like what we the people are asking and demanding for, like are you willing to engage with that and like understand that there are going to be severe consequences if you don't, like are you willing to endure those severe consequences just to feel right, just to feel like just to not listen um to like what citizens are asking for.
I mean, that's a question. I mean, that's a question. I think when I think about that question, like our president doesn't care. Like our president, he's more interested in watching the drama and the controversy of his base go against the Democrats more than anything. And at the end of the day, like most white people are racist except if the color's green. And if it's green, then why should they care about anything else? And that's really the reason why you know racism has still you know perpetrated our nation. It's just because the elites only see white and green, I think. And that's the reason why they don't care about being on the wrong side of history. I think
But
that's really what it, like, to them, is not being on the wrong side. Like, I guess, like, as a history graduate and studying great men don't think about social issues necessarily. Great men just do great things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where most of that's why I feel like that's where most of the not caring or the indifference really comes from. It's just like, really, like, there are things that are just more important than Black lives. And shoot,
yeah.
I mean,
And I
they
hear what you're saying, that power in place isn't going to be changed by this, but with an election coming up and with uh, sports ramping up and being able to be kind of a megaphone for everything going on, and really like keep all of what's happening right now in it, like almost being like this year the NBA Finals is going to be more than just sports. Like this whole playoffs and ramp up is now going to be a campaign for social justice and civil justice. And so, like, do you this is the voice that's been created? Do you feel like it's powerful enough to combat the elites? Do you believe like the voice has reached that level, or by November will have reached that level and will have maintained that level?
I mean, like, people are gonna have their social status no matter what, I feel like. But at the same time, like, I think people are starting to finally be like, we're going to stand up and we're going to make them at least get the message across. And that's what a lot of the people with like Deshaun Watson and a couple other players that made that NFL video saying, hey, NFL, it's time to stand up. It's time to stand with us and say that Black Lives Matter. It's time for you to denounce racism and be like, you're not welcome to have racism here in America anymore and all that. You can't keep catering it to these people that don't care about having hate filled in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, whether people feel like the NFL is being genuine or not, getting the message across in general is at least the first step they need to take in saying, hey, we should have combated this more. We shouldn't have silenced our players when they tried to make a stand for something. And, some people are going to be like, oh, yeah, this is just a ploy or whatever. But, them just even having a statement out in general, being willing to do something like that in the first place, that's what's important, I think, right now.
And that just comes back to the statement, like when we started. It's just that's why I think it's really important that like sports media has been the one to, and I really think that probably came out of the conversation that this topic is going to get politicized by all of the news stations. This is such a serious topic that we are going to, like we say, break the entertainment like model, and we are going to be where the real conversation happens, because we know how this is going to, because we know we are like the last place that most Americans, blue, red, left, right, political, apolitical, young, old, we are the one thing that everyone tunes into. And so, so like that's why I think it's very powerful that sports is the one that's saying we're going to have this conversation, because whether or not you agree, it is that important for us to have, and we know you're going to be tuning in, so we're going to make sure that you hear what needs to get said. And like I just think that's incredibly, I think it's incredibly like telling of the times we're in, and it's something to definitely take notice of. And like I think that it's, once like if change happens, it's going to be once again like sports, but it happened because of like the sports atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the culture of sports is kind of like, it's kind of socialist at heart. And I don't want to say socialist in a bad way, but it's like with sports, you have teams.
Yeah.
Teams are about togetherness. Togetherness is about struggling together and about being, because everybody knows that, hey, you got some players who are going to be the best on the team. You got some players who are going to be the worst on the team. But that's not what it's about. It's about everybody putting their heart in, putting the equal amount of effort in to do for one another.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that, hey, everybody has different body types, different talent, different personalities, different, traits and everything. And I think that's the beautiful thing with sports, is that, I'm a huge soccer fan, and I can't wait for the English Premier League to come back. The German league, Bundesliga, is already back. Think about it though. At any given moment, you have 3, 4, 5 different nations playing on one field.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care where anyone's from. They just care that, hey, they love the sport that I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what I think that's what you're trying to really make pop out, because it's like, yeah, in sports, literally there's no room for bias, because everybody loves the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, at the highest levels and at the best levels, the teams are going to be very diverse, And one thing that gets them through is their mutual love and respect for each other and the game that they play.
And that's the thing is like you want to have the respect for both, right? Like both the game and the people that actually play the game. Because sometimes people kind of misconstrue like their respect for how they play the game rather than just their respect for that person on the field in general. I mean, if you go to UGA football's Facebook page right now, where they put the blackout page and they were making a statement of how Black Lives Matter, a good 60% of that is just combated with people that are just like, oh, you're going to make a political stance right now. Oh, like, well, how could you do this kind of thing? And it really sucks to see people like fans of UGA to have like such a stance like that, especially during a time like all this, we're just kind of rallying just so we can say, hey, let's prevent another innocent life from being taken. Their takeaway from all this is, oh, the school's taking a political stance right now, and we shouldn't have this, especially going into the football season and stuff. It's like, don't you want to respect your fellow athletes, your fellow students that go to school with you when when everybody comes back? Don't you want to feel more unified by saying that Black Lives Matter and that we can all kind of get through it together? And of course, so people that want to kind of agree with that will say, well, all lives matter. Like my life should matter just as much and your life shouldn't matter more. And I'm not going to get into that conversation because it should be implied from like how things are to the fact that just the reason why they have that movement is because that when it comes to certain justices that we're still waiting on for people that have killed innocent Black lives, like when it comes to every other crime that they want to point out, black crime that exists, but they go to jail for it. And you see justice for that. Everything else, we're trying to wait on justice for them. We're trying to see, do they see us less of a person? And them having a reaction like that, it seems like they do see us less of a person sometimes. And I could go on and on about how the culture in UGA has always been pretty questionable when it comes to their minority base, especially when it came to them like feeling like my sister. She went to UGA. She graduated from there, and she always had this stigmatism placed around her that, oh, she was only there because of affirmative action, even though affirmative action ended years ago. They constantly reminded Black students, oh, well, someone else just lost their place because the rest of the other Black people that are here and stuff, Like, there are still some things that need to change from school to school, from state to state.
Absolutely.
I think, and I was going to point out that, Mike, the same people who are mad that Georgia politicized and, stated that, Black Lives Matter are the same ones who, were rooting for Herschel in that night, in the 1980.
They loved what he did
crazy
for them, but
right,
as a person,
right? So it's just crazy.
That's the frustrating part that you're talking about is the people that have the pride in UGA winning, not the players on the field who are actually like and I mean, as sports fans, we all do it when our team is winning. We say we, but it's always very important to also acknowledge that the fans. To acknowledge the players that are actually achieving achieving the achievement, and what you're talking about are the fans that are just happy that UGA is winning, or just like are happy about the mascot or the colors, and not supportive of the players that actually go like making it happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a shame, and like that, like we have 3 minutes here, and like I'm trying to find kind of like a way to kind of summarize everything, and like I've been out there, I've been seeing the signs, seeing the people, seeing the emotion, and it's definitely something that I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad that it's happening all around the world, and it's opening up, and people are having to have this conversation, and it's and it there's something about this that feels very significant, and it just the thing for me is like I I'm anxious about it because I want to see permanent change, and it's kind of like what like it's hard to have any kind of like it's hard to know what to feel about everything in totality without kind of like seeing where all of this ends up going, and if it's but like
Well, I mean, like in the last like 2 minutes that we have remaining, like I definitely do want to end on a positive note that I really don't think that as bleak as things have seemed throughout the beginning of time, it still doesn't seem impossible that we can find a way to find love for each other and find common ground, because we've always had common ground with some things. I mean, that's why like we have this whole sports thing going on. When things come back, yeah, sure, it's gonna seem really awkward, and, especially with, like, the sickness going on and with the possible protests going forward. But we can still find our way back to clinging on to those ties that we have, whether it be with the sports teams that we follow, respecting the people that play the game, and also finding love in finding those victories where we have them together or experiencing a loss together. Everything we do together, and I'm sure we can find a way through it.
yeah, Jordan.
Yeah, and I think as human beings, this is the final frontier. Human beings have conquered everything imaginable on Earth, but the final frontier is human rights. On all six continents, there is some sort of human right that is being violated on some mass scale by some system that is being, that is exploiting, some sort of, race or group of people. And I think literally we as human beings have done so much for so many things that we've forgotten that this is the one thing that really should matter.
Yeah,
So, and I
right.
and I
It's
think
us. It's about collectively the world, like learning how to like can we work together? Can we figure it out together? And I think that's what this is about. Yeah,
yes, sir.
A solid way to end.
for sure. Anyway, thanks guys, and take it easy. Hope things end positively. Black Lives Matter.
Stay safe
Yes.
out there.
Yes, Black Lives Matter. Wear a mask. Wear a mask. Wear a mask.